What is up, everyone? Happy Sunday evening. Hey, can you guys hear me? Can somebody just leave a comment down there and tell me if you can hear me? I'm using a new mic and testing 1, 2, 3. Looking for a comment down there for somebody to say they can hear my audio okay. Yep. Okay, good. Awesome. All right. So hopefully the audio is a little bit better. I told you guys I was ordering a little bit of equipment here. So I have I've got an external mic now. I'm looking into a couple of options. This one's actually, I think, going to be able to do double duty for one of my cameras as well. But I think it's going to work for this. And if it doesn't work, great. You guys let me know. Okay, perfect. Brian Petrucci saying the sound is loud and clear. Awesome. How are all you guys? Man, I feel like I know it's only been a week, but I feel like I missed you guys. We got Fat Matt in the house, Doug Carr I see again, Dirt Bandit Outdoors, man. You should see the bunk bed that you built. JL2 Off-Road from New Zealand, Lummox Overland's in the house, Southern Edge, Stephen and Christy, Sarah, I'm guessing Sarah and Nick are hanging out together. Got Brian Petrucci, Angie Jensen, Mark Taniguchi. Awesome, man. Mark saying that the audio is good, but I'm breaking up. Odie Slim in the house. Gary Watts, Al Pacello. All right, man. Good to see the usual crowd here. I saw there's Asa Lee. How are you, my friend? I think you may have actually beat Jacqueline in. Seaway 44, first on the super chat, man. Thank you, my friend, going right into the land fund. Just like I said, if you guys have specific things that you want your super chat to go to, like land fund, camera, whatever, gas and or just the usual gas and tires on channel fund, you tell me, and that's where your money will go, man. Really appreciate that right out of the gate, man. Thank you. So tonight I've got the looks like I'm working on the black cherry hint, and then I've got a peach for a backup here. Man, I had a really good weekend. I'm maybe dragging a little bit. I played pretty hard yesterday with a couple of guys. I did a post up on Instagram, a few pictures, but had a good trip. Yesterday, I met up with a couple of good friends of mine that I've been friends with for a while. Mike from Occasional Overland on Instagram, and John from Central Oregon Adventure, and there's Chris Holman. Awesome, man. I will definitely throw it in the tank, brother. Thank you. That'll be a big help. Travis, thank you, my friend. Right out of the gate, man. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate that. So, yeah, man. So had a great trip this weekend with a couple of guys I've known for a while, John and Mike. John, like I said, is Central Oregon AD, and there's links to their Instagrams, or their Instagram handles are down below. Ubershaw. I hope I'm saying that, man. Right in the beer fund. All right, man. Well, I have to spend it on whatever you guys tell me. So if that's what you want me to spend it on, that's where it goes. Fat Matt Adventures, man. All right. That's going towards the Canon M50. I'm actually really close to pulling the trigger on that, man. Let's see. Oh, quick question here. I see Corey Martindale's got a question. Hey, so I know the FSR with the GS49 fit on my TRD off-roading RAV4. It's an Overland West build. I think so. That 49 series tent has about the smallest footprint. So I think you'd be okay on that RAV4. But shoot an email to Tim over there at Free Spirit, Tim or Casey. Not me, Casey. I've got another brother, Casey, that works over there. Not an actual brother, friend Casey that works over there. But if you email them, they'll give you the dimensions on the pan of that tent. And I'm guessing that's going to be your best bet, because that's a pretty small pan. Nate O'Reilly is saying, come down south sometime, my friend. Well, give me a couple more weeks of this crappy winter weather up here, and I will definitely be up for that. Fat Matt Adventures is saying the Canon M50 is not waterproof, though. Just beware. Gary Watts, good to see you, my friend. Right in the land fund, man. Your wish is my command. That's where it's going then. Oh, let's see. Stand Up America, brother. All is going as good. Man, I'm way overpaid. I couldn't I couldn't ask for more, man. Let's see. Kelly Barnes, Hike with Mike. That's so cool to see all you guys. All right, a couple of things right out of the gate I wanted to say. I did put a new section in the description of these live videos down below where I will, wait a minute, did I miss Gary, thank you, man. Thank you, sir. I put a new section down below. So, every week I do some shout outs, and I wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of my thought process behind why I do that. And the bottom line is, man, I always like supporting the people that are trying to make a go of things out there. I love watching other people's Instagram and YouTube content out there, people that are interested in the outdoors. And so I always want to do everything I can to encourage other people who are trying to build up an audience and maybe create some more interest in the outdoors and pass on that lifestyle. I think there are so many rewards that come from pursuing interest in the outdoors, whether it be overlanding or camping or hunting or whatever. I just think there's so much to be learned from that. So I really feel strongly about supporting anyone who's trying to build a channel and everything out there. Al, my friend, thank you. All right, that one's going for the Vernlander, as it's so been dubbed, the grandpa's truck. I just had that out driving it again today, in fact. Yep. So anyway, man, I always like to support guys, even when they're brand new, or guys or gals starting YouTube channels or Instagrams. I just think the more of us there are that are kind of helping to pass on the traditional outdoor kind of lifestyle. Like I said, I think there's so many rewards to be had. There's so many things to be learned from spending time in the outdoors. And I remember back about 7 years ago now when I started my channel, it's a tough road to hoe building an audience. And here I am. But when you think about 7 years down the road and all the hours and all the time I've spent, and finally, it's getting to the point that thanks to you guys, there's a little bit of income that trickles in off of it and helps kind of offset all that time and expense. But it takes a long time to get there, especially when you're kind of in a niche like like I am and a lot of you are. So having said that, it was tough for me to find people to kind of support me and help spread the word when I was getting started. So that's something that I've just always felt like I want to always do, is anything I can to help other people get started and get their channels launched that want to. TNT Overlanding, thank you. Appreciate it, my friend. Appreciate it. That's a huge help. So in light of all that, was a really long way of saying that I'm going to start putting some of my shout outs and stuff down in the descriptions below. So if you guys could all be so kind as to look down there, check out who I gave shout outs to, and maybe go give them a follow or go take a look at them. And we've got some really, really solid people hanging out with us on Sunday nights here that are working on putting out some good content too. So if you guys could just all join me in showing them some love, man. It's always surprised me how, there are other YouTube creators out there that are open to supporting other creators and everything, but the more successful they get, the more difficult it is to get to them and get their attention and get, but there's so much to be had for a guy who's just starting out on YouTube and maybe only has 1,000 subs. A guy that like me that has, pushing 70,000 can actually be a big help steering some people their direction. Jeeping with Jen and John, man, thank you guys for the support. Yeah, I totally understand, man. You guys have work tonight, but yeah, you can watch it later, man. I'm going to talk a little bit about navigation. So for anybody, if you notice Jeep and Jen and John, they're a great example of some folks that are doing some cool videos too. So tonight, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue. Holy smoke, Stephen Peterson, man. Thank you, sir. Thank you. That is way too kind, way too generous, my friend. Thank you very much. And cool stuff ordered from Lolo. Looking forward to hearing about that. Kramer Junction. There he is, my friend. Was just chatting with Kramer, actually messaging back and forth, commenting on Instagram today. Cool stuff. All right, guys. So I see Oregon Mike's in the house, so he's going to be moderating the comment section there. He can probably recruit Sean Squatch PNW or Jacqueline if he needs some help. Real quick before I get rolling, though, I wanted to give a shout out to Jacqueline, sends in the tin. And the coolest thing about this is that I really like, because I like the positive message. It's an old Ruger ad. And what's the first cool thing about it is that when this ad was done, the Ruger was $37.50. $37.50 was how much a standard Ruger cost. The Target version was a few more dollars, and the single six was $25. Like, that's crazy. Ruger single six for $25. So Jacqueline, thank you. Awesome piece of wall art on there. This one might make a repeat appearance just because the wording on there, a symbol of responsibility. With the right and enjoyment of owning a firearm goes the constant responsibility of handling it safely and using it wisely. So just a good message on there. Really appreciate it. Awesome, Sean Squatch. Thank you, my friend. Okay, yeah, Sean Squatch got a load of stuff. Hopefully, my brothers Daniel and Josh over at Lola hooked you up, man. So anyway, we didn't quite get last week to all of the stuff that I wanted to cover related to navigation and picking a good campsite. So just got back from a great trip this weekend. I actually did a long day trip on Saturday and then did another bit of a day trip today. So didn't camp this weekend, but was thinking a little bit about some of that stuff. So the first question, or the first topic that I wanted to talk about was just, and I get this question a lot, is about what kind of apps that I use for navigation out there. So for me personally, I think, anybody that's been watching my channel for a while knows that mostly what I use is navigation apps like Gaia Gps, probably the one that I use the most. What I have is I have Gaia GPS and I have Backcountry Navigator. I have both of those. I also have a handheld Garmin GPS with Garmin InReach on it. And again, my buddy Mike from Occasional Overland on Instagram let me borrow his Garmin Overlander for a period of time, and I used it. So as far as the question about what navigation apps do I prefer, I really, for the most part, use apps as opposed to my GPS devices. So I use primarily Gaia GPS and Backcountry Navigator. And Gaia GPS I have on my iPhone and on my iPad. And obviously, they sync to each other. And then I can also log into the Gaia website, any place that I have access to a PC and the internet. And basically, I can bring all tracks and points, everything are always there in the cloud. So wherever I'm at, even if I didn't have one of my own devices, I could still get at those. Cosmic Padre Off-Road. Awesome, my friend. Thank you. Another land contribution. Alvin Texan, my brother. Good to see you show up, man. I hear you guys have some snow down there in Texas. I don't know if you do where you're at, but I've heard it's a mess some places. So hopefully you and your family are doing good. Alvino. And Cosmic Padre Off-Road, thank you. So one of the reasons why I use the apps is for that cross-platform functionality, so that on any kind of a device, whether it be my laptop, any place really that I can access a web browser, I can log on and I can put GPS points in. I can create tracks, things like that, and then everything syncs up to the cloud. So that's one of the reasons why I really like the app. The other reason is just the choice of devices and screens I can put them on. So my phone, I've always got on me when I'm hiking around. So it's nice to have the same app on my phone that I have on my iPad. So maybe I'm using my tablet inside my truck or inside my Jeep when I'm out there navigating around. And then I jump out to go on a hike and I've got the same app on my phone. So for me, I just really like the multifunctionality and then the cross-platform, the syncing of all of my waypoints and data and everything that Gaia GPS provides, or that a GPS app like that provides. So I've been hearing more and more lately about Onyx. I know more people are using that one. I don't really have any experience with it. Like I said, the two I use are Gaia GPS and Backcountry Navigator. More and more so, I've been using Gaia GPS more often than I'm using Backcountry Navigator. And part of the reason why is just because a bigger group of people that I'm interacting with and sharing waypoints and tracks and stuff with are using Gaia GPS. The cool thing about Gaia GPS is just so easy to send points back and forth. Like, you know, I can literally, you know, maybe like my buddy Augustine that lives up in Portland's coming out here for a trip. And so, oh, Mike, Occasional Overland. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, that was a good trip. Really enjoyed that time around the fire with you and John, man. That was good day. It was a long day, man. I was a little bit beat by the time I got home, but yeah, so for those of you guys that care to know too, Mike with Occasional Overland has been working on helping me kind of with this whole live stream setup. So we jumped on a Zoom call, Mike and John and I, Central Oregon Adventure. We jumped on a conference call earlier this week on Zoom and started putting together kind of an equipment list and everything. We're going to try to get Zoom or try to get these live streams set up so that we can pull guests in. I think you're going to see us probably start planning some kind of major treasure hunting trips. One of the things that, well, there's really two kind of on my mind. There's been two kind of long-term legends around here, two stories of kind of lost gold in this country. And I've always had it in the back of my mind all my life to start actually searching for those. And I'm not going to tell you the stories tonight because that'll be part of the video series on them. But I think that I think this is something that that John and Mike and maybe even another guy or two and I are going to kind of team up on, is really kind of pooling our resources, our various knowledge in different areas. And then seeing if we can really track down some of these old things. So one is the lost blue bucket gold, and the other is, and I don't want to say too much about the other one because I don't want to put other people on the hunt of that treasure, but let's just say the other one has to do with a gold shipment that was stolen off of a stagecoach and was lost somewhere up in the Ochco Mountains. So anyway, I didn't mean to get sidetracked there, guys, but I did want to just give a shout out to Mike and John for jumping in and kind of working with me and all working together to help get some kind of a better setup so we can show you guys some of our mission planning, so we can get some guests on here, and it's going to take a little while, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So going back to the app thing, so basically what are the advantages of the apps are the cross-platform functionality, the ability to be able to store all the data in the cloud, access it from anywhere, the ability to be able to run your maps and your navigation on a variety of different devices. You can do map recon on your big screen iMac at home or on your iPad, so you can do your map recon on those big screens like that. And JL2 off-road, and that's awesome. It's that's really cool. It says NZ 899. So I don't know if that's like a New Zealand currency, but appreciate the contribution, my friend. Thank you. So back in the day, we used to use a lot of handheld GPS devices, and I have one of those, a Garmin InReach, but I use it mostly for the functionality of the off-grid texting, the satellite messaging and everything on it. Just because the screens are so small on those and everything, they're a little bit more difficult to use. So a lot of people ask me the question, it really comes down to this. A lot of people ask me, what's your recommendation, Casey? What would you recommend we get to start out with as a navigation app? So right now, my recommendation is just go with Gaia GPS. It seems to be the most widely used. It has maybe not, but I think it has at least the maximum amount of functionality for kind of a user level GPS navigation and mapping app. It also has the ability to be able to use a lot of different map base layers. And that's really important when it comes to overlanding and exploring, because a lot of modern maps don't have all of the old trails on them. So you'll find like a map produced in the late 90s or the 2000s won't even show a lot of the roads that you might find out on public land. So you have to go back to base layers from like the 80s to be able to see all those roads. Bottom line is when you're really trying to navigate in remote country, you might even be using several different base layers, bouncing back and forth between them. kind of cross-referencing back and forth to determine what trails and things exist and what routes you're going to be able to take. So that's kind of my official recommendation right now. I'm not sponsored by, or I don't get any kickbacks or anything from any GPS navigation apps or anything like that. Just full disclosure, you know, there's nothing there. I just think Gaia is one of the easiest ones to use, most widely used. So that's the one that I would recommend. So as far as that's kind of where I wanted to get to last week, that we ran out of time for the for the mapping and navigation apps. And hopefully I feel like I'm kind of breezing through this really fast, but hopefully you guys kind of get the point, is that you have these base layers that you download in your phone or your tablet or whatever. And then Central Oregon ADV, speak of the devil, man. Yeah, no problem. I had an awesome time out there too. Yeah, you guys are going to be, we got into some mud, but you guys will see probably all of us, Central Oregon Adventure. You can see him up on the screen right now, and occasional Overland. You'll see us trickling pictures out on Instagram from it. Craig Home, how are you, my friend? Good to see you this Sunday again. Thank you. So anyway, that's kind of my consensus on the navigation apps right now. I really like Backcountry Navigator also, but my sense is that it's sort of fallen behind a little bit. Like I don't know, it seems like maybe in the last year or two there hasn't been as much development going into it. So, you know, I don't know if it's kind of being eclipsed by some of the others. I hear that Onyx is really on the rise. I know, like my buddy Tucker that I was out with this weekend, his tag's in the description down below. Cool guy, just actually randomly ran into him out there and invited him to follow us along. So he tagged along with John and Mike and I for the rest of the afternoon. Really enjoyed it. Good dude. But he was using the Garmin Overlander, so we're starting to see that crop up quite a bit more. But for just starting out, man, go get Gaia GPS, get the paid version of it, the basic paid version of it, and call it good, man. Start getting used to using it. So let's see. What else do I have here on that? Yeah, so basically your options are apps, Garmin Overlander, or some form of a GPS unit. And I just think now apps are just kind of the way to go. Other thing about apps is this is getting a little bit more advanced, but like I sometimes can access like actual GIS data layers, and then I can convert those to file types that I can then import into my GPS apps. I can do that with both Backcountry Navigator and Gaia GPS. Like I can take things like the county parcels layer, the property ownership layer in a county, and dump it in there and have current up-to-date tax information on properties and things like that. So good functionality there. All right, so any questions really quick before I move on? Stephen Peterson, man, appreciate you giving a shout out to Craig. Yep, he's a solid dude, man. Really appreciate him. Robert Burke, let's see. I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions about the GPS apps before I moved on and talked about the started talking about the how to pick a great campsite. Okay, looks like we're all solid. Ace is asking if I am on Wi-Fi or plugged in. I am on Wi-Fi. I don't actually have any physical connections in here. Hopefully the Wi-Fi is doing okay. It can be a little sketchy. I live in a rural community, so until I get Starlink, the performance can be a little sketchy. Patty, I didn't talk about the meetup yet a little bit, but I will if you want me to before the end of the deal. Okay. So I just see a comment there from JL2 Off-Road. Comment caught my eye that he's saying he loves doing the map research, and I really do too, man. I will spend time, like almost every evening I'll spend time, and I can just lose hours in the evening, like just doing map recon, looking over satellite imagery and map layers and trying to find old historic things out there. I know Nate Zoinks, I don't know if he's on here tonight, but I know he does that a lot too. Okay, DMR dude saying there was some static on my audio, but it's good now. So I'm guessing that was just a connection issue. Sorry about that, guys. It just happens sometimes in this neighborhood. Okay, so another thing I wanted to talk about is how to find a great campsite. So this is another one of those questions that a lot, probably I get it, 5-10 times a week even, is, how to actually pick a campsite. So what I talked about last week was like what areas, how to know what areas you can camp in. So I talked about like private land versus BLM land versus Forest Service land versus state land. And I kind of talked to you about the concept of dispersed camping and how you can kind of decide what areas it's okay for you to disperse camp in. But what I didn't get to is I really wanted to drill down into what are some things when it comes down to actually picking a spot that make a good campsite. So, thirsty. So the first thing that I think about usually, and this has a lot to do with, well, let me back up a second. So the first thing I would say is when you're looking for a campsite, the first question you have to ask is kind of what are you looking to do in that campsite? So if it's a place that you want to post up for a couple of days and you're really planning on hanging out there, spending a lot of time in camp, that might be a little bit different situation. So for me, what I'm usually looking for is the first and most important thing is the resources that I need really close at hand. So if you guys have watched many of my videos, there's a couple of things. If I'm going to build a fire, I'm going to build a fire reflective wall. So that being the case, I'm going to need some rocks handy. Since I'm building a fire, I'm also going to want some wood relatively close by. So that's what I mean by resources. If I know that I'm going to need to filter some water, or I want to do some bathing or something like that, I might want some water nearby. So I would say resource-wise, those are probably the most common things that I kind of look for: rocks, wood, and or water. So, and I'll get back to the water thing in a little bit, because a lot of people think that are really attracted to camping right on top of water. And at least out in this area, there's some really good reasons why that's not always a great idea. So number one is resources that you might need or want around camp. Another thing to think about is if you're constructing anything in camp, like if you want to put up a ridge pole between two trees so that you can string a tarp from it and make a shelter or make a rain cover or a covered area to hang out under, then you would want to look around and make sure you had some straight standing deadwood or something like that. So looking around for those resources is the first. The second thing is almost any way you camp, unless you're a hammock camper, you're going to want some level ground. So that is where that's a place where you can actually do some research on your map. You can look at the topo lines on the map as you're kind of planning out where you want to camp in and kind of identify some areas maybe a little bit more level. But so resources, level ground. Another way that I think about resources is like anything that exists there that can make my camp setup easier. So for example, maybe there's a really big 4-foot round old ponderosa pine stump, right? And that, because there's that big stump there, I can just use that for my table and I don't necessarily need to set up a table. Or that makes a good spot for me to set up my wash station, my water jug or something. Maybe I see an old hunting camp and it has a meat pole hung up in the tree up there, so that I can use to string a tarp from. So that's another thing, is I always look for anything that can make my camp setup easier. An area that the ground's kind of clear, that there's not a lot of the country I'm out in, there's a lot of sagebrush on the ground, and it's nice to find an area that's kind of clear of sagebrush. Sorry guys, I got distracted. I just saw somebody left a comment on there asking if whatever they said didn't offend someone else. I always think that's entertaining. Who was that? Ian, you're welcome, my friend. Looks like you're from across the pond, man. Best wishes from Shakespeare country, huh? Where is that, my friend? What part of what's the, I'm assuming somewhere over, across the pond over there, but anyway, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. So another thing a lot of times that I look for in a camp spot out in this country is a place that's kind of sheltered from the weather. So especially like this time of year, we can get some really strong winds, but really out in the country southeast of here, like out by the Alvord Desert or out by Plush or north of Plush and Adel, out around the Heart Mountain Antelope Refuge, areas like that, the wind can just blow like mad. So another thing I look for is some kind of natural shelter from the wind. Maybe that's being in the mouth of a canyon. Maybe that's being kind of in a stand of trees or in some kind of a situation where there's some protection from the wind. And in some cases, if it's snowing real hard or raining, like it's nice to have some trees around, like a big old juniper tree that you can hang out under, and a big old juniper tree will keep the rain or the snow off you. So shelter from wind, weather, depending on the season, right, might look a little bit different. Like in the summertime, it might be having some trees around that you can get some shade from. So going back to the water source thing, one thing about the water source, at least in this country, is there's two things that the water attracts in the desert. And the dynamic is that there's not a lot of water. So whatever rare water sources there are, they tend to be where all of the wildlife goes and where there's massive amounts of insects and mosquitoes, right? So out here in this part of the country, it's usually better not to camp right on a water source. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. So if you camp right on the water source, just know that you're gonna be camping in the highest concentration of insects, number one. So some insects aren't that big of a deal, but the things that are generally bothersome are the mosquitoes, the yellow jackets, and the flies. Like they're going to be in their highest quantities near water sources or near moist areas. So the other thing, though, about water sources is they also attract the wildlife. Now, it's not that the wildlife is dangerous necessarily, but what I like to do is I like to create opportunities where I might see the wildlife. So if I'm going to camp in the general area of a water source, I'm going to camp far enough away that I'm not going to keep, or that I have less of a chance of scaring the game away from the water hole. Because sometimes I like to wake up in the morning and see what game's coming into the water hole, and that increases the chances that I might see some wildlife there. Hey, Scott, what's going on, my friend? I was just reading through a bunch of your comments on last week's live today, man. Some good stuff on there. Thank you. So those are a couple of kind of the real practical things. Do you have resources close by? Do you have level ground for setting your vehicle in your rooftop tent or sleeping in your canopy or setting up your tent, whatever? Is there anything in the area that can make your camp life or your camp setup easier? Maybe a rim rock that you can build your fire up against it that saves you the effort of building a fire reflective wall. Maybe there's a log down on the ground that is a good log for staging gear on or whatever. Do you have shelter from any elements that you might be dealing with? Shade from the sun, windbreak, things like that. And then not right on top of a water source. Another thing, here's a couple other a little bit more minor things, but good things to know. When the temperatures are colder, generally if you camp in a low spot in a depression, like just picture, like a bowl, or a lot of times like down in the bottom of a ravine or a little valley, that is typically speaking where the cold air is going to settle. So the temperature a lot of times can be, and you can really feel this like in the spring and the fall, where you get down in a little bit of a depression, and a lot of times the temperature can be 5, maybe even 10 degrees cooler down in a depression than it is up on a little bit higher ground. So that's something to think about. Also, another thing to pay attention to is the sun direction. So the sun generally rises in the east and sets in the west, at least out in this part of the country, right? And so that's a good thing to pay attention to for a couple of reasons. Like Do you want the evening sun on your camp? Do you want the setting sun hitting your camp as it falls? Maybe you want to take some nice pictures for the gram and you want the that golden hour setting sun on your camp, or maybe it's just the view. Maybe you want to watch the sunset out there in the evening. Or a lot of times what I like, or what I typically do, especially when it's colder, is I set my camp so that it's most likely that the morning sun is going to hit my camp. And I like that because generally, you know, the very coldest time out in this country is usually the very early morning. And so the sooner I can get exposure to that morning sun is just really nice. So I like to pay attention to that. I like to set my camp up so I've got some trees behind me and I'm going to catch that rising morning sun there. So some other things is I like some trees around my camp, or I like some shelter kind of behind me, but I like to be able to have an area to see a nice view out in front of me. I like to wake up in the morning, dangle my feet out of my rooftop tent while I'm drinking my first cup of coffee and look out over a big area. I love that. I love waking up in the morning to a view like that. So a lot of times I'll put my camp like right on the edge of some cover with big open area out in front of me. And a lot of times I'll be up at a little elevation so I can look down across a big valley or something like that. I love that. So those are the kind of basic ingredients to camp. If I'm in an area where it's likely that there will be other people, there's a couple of other things that I like to do. One is I like to camp out of sight of any roads or anything like that traffic is likely to come down. I would just as soon, if I'm in an area where anybody's going to drive by, that they not even see me or notice me. So I'll get back off the road a ways, back in behind some trees, get around a terrain feature, over a little rise or something like that. So my camp's not visible from a place where there might be other people. Now, you guys know for the most part, like where I go, I'll go for days at a time and never see another person. So that's not really a worry. But if I am in one of those areas where a few other people go, then I want to be out of sight and out of mind. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is, you know, if I'm out there by myself on a solo experience, I'm really out there to enjoy that solo experience, right? Not be surrounded by other people. That's how I live at home back at my house, right? I have other people all around me. So when I go out there, I want to get away from them. But the other thing is kind of security too, because as you guys know, I usually always take off on a hike in the morning or in the evening or whatever. And if my camp's not visible, I don't have to worry about it being tempting to someone to mess with it or to be back in my camp. So that's just kind of a thing I have played around with in the past. I just see Asa left a comment about camo tarps. And back in the old days, we used to have this stuff called camo netting, you know, and years ago when I drove around my old Chevy pickup truck and my Dodge pickup truck and stuff like that, I did oftentimes have a camo net in that I would throw over it. Well, my Dodge was white, so I needed something to kind of break it up. Yeah, I see a couple of people chiming in on the yeah, Red Mexican Hendrix. The gunshots always give us away. Yep, that's true, man. That's true. Scott McDonald. It's true. Yep. So Scott just left a comment in there that says sometimes people camp next to you just to be near somebody, and that is true. I do understand that. I do understand that some people draw comfort from that and feel safer when they're closer to other people. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. I just think if you run into somebody way out there in the middle of nowhere and you want to camp next to them, you should ask them, because there's a possibility they might be out there because they don't want to be next to anyone. And so it's just kind of a courtesy thing out in the desert in the wide open country. So Dirt Bandit Outdoors, let's see, a little bit off topic, but good lighting, Casey. It was a little dark in the past. Yeah, so what I did is I did something really tricky, is I turned on another overhead light in this room. And yeah, that seems to be helping. I haven't got the ring light yet, but I may do that. I noticed depending on how far or how close I am from the camera, that light can change a little bit too, or the angle of my screen. So Man, that's some of those are some of the things that I think about when I'm picking a campsite. And those are things that go all the way back to, when I was a young guy. Those are things that my dad and my grandpa taught me about picking a a good campsite. So let's see. Matt, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Let's see. Anybody else got any questions about that? What are we gonna do next? I'm thinking, should we go into show and tell next? Carol said the ring light will make my eye look like an alien. I like that, man. Maybe I can make people think I'm an alien. That'd be pretty cool. NC Farmer, thank you, my friend. He says he really enjoyed the drone video. Yeah, that drone. So for those of you that don't know, I just put a video out on my YouTube channel today about kind of using my drone to recon historic sites. And, after I put the video out, there was one more thing. So you guys are going to get a bonus, something that everybody else in the video didn't get. Something I forgot to mention in that video is another way that drone comes in really handy is a lot of times, like out in this country, a lot of it's pretty flat. And so one cool thing to do is a lot of times when I'm exploring an area is I like to get some elevation and be able to look out across. Usually if you get some elevation around here, I mean, you can see for miles and miles and miles, right? And that's a good way to be able to spot like canyons and things like that. There's places in this country where when you're at ground level and you look out across the flat, you can't tell that half a mile away from you, there's a canyon cut out across there. That might be a really cool place to explore. So that is another thing I'll use my drone for is I'll throw it up in the air when I'm out in the flat country, run it all the way up to kind of its maximum height and just look around and see if there's any canyons or cool terrain features or anything that I can't see from the ground. So, all right, let me look at my notes here. Oh man, I didn't update my notes. I still have my notes for the survival food show and tell from last week on, right? Patty, thank you. Yeah, so Patty brings up a good point. So she's saying that she likes to pick spots with gatekeepers on the road to minimize people that she'll see. And that goes back to that point I was making earlier. I really much prefer to just kind of avoid people out there. So anything I can do to put separation between myself and the potential of running into other people out there is perfect for me. All right, you guys ready to do a little show and tell? So again, since you guys have been so awesome about your super chats and your support and everything, I can take a couple of minutes every week, which makes me really happy because I get a lot of questions about different firearms and things like that. So I like to be able to include that in my show and tell from time to time. So I've had about 4 questions, and I think I've maybe talked about this in the past, but I've had about 4 questions this week about the Gucci Glock. This is my Faxon FX19 Hellfire pistol. So this comes from Faxon Firearms. It's based off of a polymer 80 frame and everything, but I just wanted to real quick go over the actual details of this build. So if you guys are interested in seeing the base model pistol has the mag extension, the suppressor height sights, and a threaded barrel. And then all these cool slide cuts and everything like that. So besides that, everything else I kind of attached to this to make what's kind of known as a Roland Special. And that's basically a Glock 19 kind of modded out. So, or commonly referred to as a Gucci Glock. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to check and make sure the gun's safe. So to do that, we're going to remove the source of feed. We're going to lock the slide to the rear. If there was a round in the chamber, we would watch that round go out. We would look at that round to verify that the round came out of the chamber. And now we're going to look inside the chamber, and I'm going to see that I cannot see brass in there. And I'm going to look until I see daylight through the mag well. So now I can see that there is no round in this gun, that this handgun is safe. All right. So now we have a safe gun here. So going through it all, this magazine comes from Faxon. It has the mag extension on it. like I said, the gun comes from them with the magwell on it. What I added to it was I added the Trigicon RMR, I added the Cyanide Designs Micro Comp, and I added the Surefire X300U 1000 lumen weapon light. So the cool thing about this is the pistol itself is really already kind of tricked out. It has the Overwatch precision trigger in it. I don't know if you guys can see that, but great trigger, just a really solid flat face trigger. So really, it makes it very, very easy to turn this into a Gucci Glock. So like I said, I just added the light, the comp, and the Trigicon RMR, and it's pretty much good to go. One thing that I really like about this is I like these suppressor height sights that come on it. I like the blacked out rear sight and the dot front sight. One thing that I've really have become a fan of is blacked out rear sights with no markings on them. So anyway, it's a real quick look at that. You guys know who you are, who are interested in seeing that. Couple more show and tell things. One thing I had, let's see, I don't remember who it was, but somebody made a comment about the old Hickory knives, and I wanted to show you guys these. So these are the Ontario Knife Company Old Hickory knives. I may have showed you guys this before, but these are just awesome camp knives. But when I was young, these were actually the hunting knives that we used. We used these, I don't know that they were made by Ontario Knife Company back then, but they were basically this butcher knife style hunting knife. And so these are what we use to field dress out game with. They got a nice wide belly on the blade, but these things are really inexpensive, and I don't know, I want to say they're around 20 bucks, 25 bucks or something like that. So I think every outdoorsman should throw an old Hickory knife inside their truck box in there. And then, you at least have a good functional basic knife. Like I said, they're great camp kitchen knives, but also the spine's nice and sharp. You can drag sparks off of a fire steel with them. They're durable. They're just real simple, handy knives to have around. So that is the Old Hickory knife by Ontario Knife and Tool. Let me show you guys if you can see that. Old Hickory, brass rivets, just a real simple design, but great classic knife to have. All right, let's see. What is going on in here? Yeah, Sarah is echoing that. What a great knife, man. Yep, yeah, that's what my dad had too, man. Yep, those were the hunting knives back in the day. Okay, so now the next thing that I wanted to show and tell you guys a little bit was real quick before I get into the next show and tell, couple of the business items. Again, as always, I just wanted to tell you guys how much I appreciate super chat contributions on here. I think you guys know my merchandise agreement with Lolo Overland. Lolo Overland has hoodies, t-shirts, stickers, all Coyote Works branded merchandise for sale. Just go to the Lolo Overland Outfitting website. But I think you guys know between that merchandise there, the contributions you guys make in the super chats, and the contributions you guys make to my PayPal donate, which there's a link in the description down below this video and all my videos. Anybody that wants to make a direct monetary contribution to my channel can always do it through that donate link down below too. Oh, thank you, Dana. Thank you. Really appreciate that. More for the land fund. That is awesome. So anyway, just wanted to tell you guys, thank you for that. That is really, that's the main kind of stable support that I have for my channel. So that's been very cool. Really has been the saving grace. So also, I think I mentioned earlier, but if we have some more people on there, also some shout outs in the description down below, man. So those are just people that I want to support, or that I'm friends with, or whatever, or go on trips with, people that are trying to build an audience on their own too, for the most part. So if you take a minute to look in the description down below after the video is over, and go give those guys a follow on Instagram. Doug, thank you, my friend. Another one. Yes, man, we're going to get there, guys. We're going to get there. I'm bound and determined for us to have a group overland trip this year, an open invite trip. So, all right. So enough about the silly business stuff, and let's get back to show and tell. So something else that for whatever reason, I've got a handful of questions about this week, and I'm not sure if it's because I did a little bit different cooking in my last couple of videos, but I got some questions about some of my favorite or some of the camp dishes that I really like. Yeah, so, oh yeah, Lolo Overland, man's up on the screen right now, but the new Coyote Works stickers are out, and they have finally got my favorite camo color. So go check those out, Lolo Overland Outfitting. I was going to see if I had a picture of them here. I think my brother Daniel sent me a picture of them. Let's see if I can get this. All right, so we got the square cut camo stickers, and we've got the long version of the Coyote Works logo, the horizontal version, not the stacked one. So check those out. Those are hot off the press. So anyway, back to the whole other part of the show and tell. So one thing that I've got a lot of questions about are what are some of my favorite camp utensil, or not camp utensils, but camp cookware things. So I thought I would kind of go back old school a little bit on this, because the question about what I like to cook with kind of changes depending on how I'm cooking. So I've got a couple of things just sitting here that are kind of for different purposes. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is, what about like just kind of for bushcrafting and really lightweight, when I'm just heading out into the woods with a backpack, more bushcraft style, I love like a single pot type of situation. Now, this is a new pot that I've never used before. You can tell there's no fire on it or anything, but the basic concept behind a, kind of a bushcraft type mess kit is a single pot that's about this size. This is roughly a quart or maybe a quart and a half or something like that. This one's a zebra pot. These are really well known for being very durable. A couple things I like about it is a bail handle, so you can hang it from something over a fire to boil water. But this one's kind of cool, and I think I'm going to try this out on my next trip because it has this extra pan inside, so you could either use this for a pan or you could use it for a dish. Mark Taniguchi, thank you, my friend. Oh, no, for sure, my friend. Oh, that's awesome, Mark. Thank you. So this is the zebra pot right here. So really good one pot option. Obviously, like I said, I haven't used this one, but I've used many pots, like just a single pot this size. Something I love to just hang over the fire or set on a grill, so I have hot water going all the time. So now a couple of things that I have used. So I love to have just a decent sized pot inside my cooking kit. So this came right out of my Jeep. You guys have seen me cook many one-pot meals in my video over this, but you'll notice some similarities here. See, this one also has a handle that can hang, so it has a bail-style handle. It has the ability to lock the handle in the upright position. Another really awesome feature, that allows me to be able to use the handle to actually pour with the pot. Really nice. And then a really solid lid. So this one is, I believe, a Primus. Yeah, so this is the Primus stainless steel pot. Another kind of cool thing about this is it has this colander lid. So like if you're doing something in here like cooking shells or something like that you want to drain the liquid off of, you can do that without removing the lid. So this Primus stainless steel pot, one of my favorite all-time cook pots. Now, having good stainless steel pots work really well if you're cooking over the fire a lot with them, right? So I'm going to talk about some other dishes here in just a second, but a good stainless steel pot, it's great for the Overland kit. And then here is a stainless steel skillet. Obviously, I've cooked over a lot of campfires with this one too. Sarah, what is going on with the 30-06? All right. Freedom Seeds, Land Fun. Okay, so she's talking about she has the Pathfinder bush pot. So I actually have that Pathfinder pot too. That's what I put in my truck cooking kit. So the Vernlander, or my grandpa's truck, now has that same Pathfinder pot that Sarah uses in it. This is the Pathfinder stainless steel skillet. Great little skillet. A couple of nice things about this. The handle folds up, right? so it's nice and compact to pack away. This really has been like my go-to solo car camping skillet for a long time. Every once in a while, I'll even throw it into a backpack. One nice thing about this, I don't know if you can see, but it has this thicker stainless steel plate on the bottom. So it actually really helps this thing disperse heat really well and retain heat. Also, notice the lid has the has this thing on the lid, the handle, I guess you call it, that stays in the upright position, or can stay in the upright position. So that is the Pathfinder. You guys see that logo on there? That's the Pathfinder stainless steel skillet. Like Sarah mentioned, she has the Pathfinder pot. So they make a couple of pretty good pieces of cookware. Yeah, I think that's it. So those were the so those are kind of more campfire, you know, those stainless steel is good for the campfire. Usually you can clean it up pretty well and everything. So the next thing that I was going to mention is, because I've now bought a couple of these Covea cook sets. So this one comes from my brothers Josh and Daniel up at Lolo Overland, the crew up there. But these are the hard anodized cook sets. So I prefer hard anodized cook sets for cooking on stoves, right? So these are, if I'm cooking on backpacking stoves, things like that. Hard anodized is lightweight, it's generally really durable, and in my opinion, it's just the best balance between something that's lightweight and strong. So hard anodized stuff is good stuff to go in cook boxes. It doesn't get dented easily, and then it's good for backpacking too. And these cook sets like this are a really handy way to have a variety of different cooking vessels. Like this right here has enough stuff in it. This would be all of the cooking stuff that I would need for a solo person. So that's a Covea hard anodized cook kit. And they have a couple of different sizes of them and some dishes and everything. So, all right. What else? Let's see. What I saw a comment from Patty. Yeah, so Patty says in her comment, she said that carbon steel is nice too, which is really true. In fact, I think in, oh yeah, Sarah said that she has the skillet too. Yeah, that's awesome. I think I cooked with a carbon steel skillet in my last video. And one thing I talked about in that video, but I'll just remind you guys again, is like, you see up on the wall behind me, this skillet right here, this is more of the style of skillet that the pioneers and the cowboys, this is actually called a cold handle skillet here. These were really popular. This is an Acme cold handled skillet. But if you think about it, like the cowboys on horseback, they really just had saddlebags and then generally their bedroll tied on back of the saddle. So they really, cast iron was not practical for well, even actually with a lot of the pioneers who traveled by wagon who were trying to reduce weight. So there was some cast iron in use, but oftentimes it was carbon steel or some form of light, relatively thin steel that was used for cookware. So it's a little bit more tricky. Cast iron's a little more forgiving to cook on, but I really like steel and stainless steel. Steel, carbon steel, stainless steel, I really enjoy cooking on as well. It's a little bit different deal. Phil Weber from New Zealand, how are you, my friend? Let's see. All right, what else do we have? I want to see what some other people are doing. Cook everything on my hands. That's a good call. Yeah, right over the fire. That's good. That's good. Sorry, guys. I'm just Josh Rue. Thank you, my friend. Okay, so Josh did a super chat. So first of all, thank you for that. And then he's asking if I'm still running Nittos on my Jeep. I am running the Nitto Trail Grapplers, which basically are a mud terrain. Nitto makes another mud terrain. I forget what they call them. I think it might be actually called the Mud Grappler. Is that what they call them? But the Trail Grappler is, for all practical purposes, is a mud terrain tire. It's very aggressive. It has side lugs and everything. So yes, I will always run a mud terrain tire on my rig. Now, thing is like there's only a couple of times a year that I really need that mud terrain tire, but for me, it's worth it to have it those few times that I do actually need it. The second part of Josh's questions have I thought about going with another mud terrain tire, a different one? I have thought about it. I think you guys saw what the Lolo guys put on my truck were the Patagonia MTs. And I've been really impressed with the grip in soft, mud and stuff of that tire. And they seem to be relatively quiet on the road. So I haven't run it long enough to be super confident in it, but so far it's been a great tire, and I think it's going to perform well. I will probably put another set of Nittos on my Jeep. Honestly, I really do have liked those tires on my Jeep. Daniel Tolman, thank you, my friend. All right, you guys can do all this fancy stuff, man. How'd you get that cool little like cartoon thing on there or whatever? Yeah, man. So let's see. So Scott's asking about a winch on the truck in the future. I've gone back and forth about that. I'm at this point, I'm kind of leaning towards I probably won't put a winch on the truck. And the reason why I say that is, generally speaking, I'm trying to keep the weight down on it as low as possible. I think if I was going to put a winch on it, I'd have to do a bumper and a winch and everything. So at least right now, and part of it too is the cost, right? Like that would be, that's a lot of money to sink into that truck as a whole bumper and winch and everything. I do like the idea of it. I mean, for sure, if some company contacted me and was like, hey, we want to send you another worn winch or whatever, yeah, I would probably do it. But it's a little tough for me to justify the weight and the money for it, given what I'm primarily planning on using the truck for, which is more touring style overland and camping, like not real extreme trail stuff. That's what I got my Jeep for, or that's what I have my Jeep for. So having said that, I do know about myself that when I go out there, I have a tendency to go into some rough places. So I've already gone in a few places with a truck where I had to remind myself that I don't have a winch. I didn't have traction boards in it or anything. I think maybe you guys saw that on the last video or the video before that in the truck. Like I really had to consciously tell myself, man, you're not in your Jeep. You're not in your Jeep. You don't have a winch. You don't have the that kind of clearance and everything. You can't go there. So let's see. I'm wondering what I see Scott say. So, Asa brings up a good point, and that is a hitch-mounted winch. And that is something that's very interesting to me. It would still probably require me installing some kind of a bumper on the front, but putting a hitch mount point on the front and the rear of the truck and having a winch that I can move to either end. I actually really like that idea. I've never had that before, but yeah, and Asa brings up a good point, man. He says you never need it until you need it, and that's the truth, man. I see a comment on there. Doug Carr left a comment on there about Goodyear being anti-gun. I did not know that. Yeah. When's the next truck video? That's a really good question. I actually took my Jeep out this weekend. It was the first time I'd had my Jeep out in the mud since I got the truck back from Lolo. So I'm thinking probably next weekend I'll run out in the truck again. I have a little bit different. I kind of swapped out my bedroll and everything in the truck. I want to try that sleeping in the canopy a couple more times and just get it refined. I'm probably not going to canopy camp in that all the time, but I want to get that way of camping really dialed in it, because I think that's going to be the quickest, like high speed, low drag way for me to camp in. If I just want to throw my bedroll in the back of the truck and take off on a road trip, small little cook box, I want to be set up to do that. So basically what I'm working on is I would like a 2-component camping kit for it. This is like super high speed, low drag camping kit for the truck. So what I want for canopy camping is I'm working on refining it. So I'll have one box of stuff and my bedroll. And those will be the 2 extra pieces of equipment that I bring. Everything else, will just be stuff that I'll just make do with stuff that normally stays in the truck. So that's my goal, is to get it down to, I've got that kind of a camping setup. If I just want to grab the truck and go for a 600, 800 mile road trip, maybe down to Nevada or whatever, I'll just grab my one, camp box, cook box, everything in one box, and my bedroll, and know that I'm good to go. Let's see. When's the next, Lolo's asked, when's the next AMC Gremlin outing? We definitely need one of those. Definitely need one of those. Let's see. I see a whole bunch of stuff about the Goodyear tires. I'm going to have to catch up on that. So Paul's asking, so his comment says Wrangler now truck, future Gladiator. No, I don't think a Gladiator's in my future, actually. I was talking to, I've gotten to know Brad a little bit at Trail Recon and got some interesting kind of thoughts from him on the Gladiator. I guess there's a part of me that feels like the Gladiator is sort of kind of hopefully I guess where I struggle with the Gladiator is I feel like it's kind of a small truck, right? It's a pickup truck, but it's kind of a small pickup truck. So I think it's a really cool rig. And I was looking at, there's this guy, SoCal Overland on Instagram, that has a really, really badass Gladiator with an Alucab canopy camper on it. And I think that is just an awesome setup. But for me, when I really think about like the kind of money that it takes to, the kind of money that I would dump into something like that, I think probably before I would do that, what I would do is just I'm real curious to see how the diesel Wranglers work out, the new diesel JLs. So, but I think, probably before I would do a Gladiator, I would just put some more money into kind of tricking out and refining my grandpa's truck, my old Chevy truck, and have a true full size truck. Maybe someday I put a diesel power plant in that thing, and upgrade the suspension and everything and the drivetrain. I don't know. I think I was talking to a guy the other day that has a diesel shop here in Primeville, where he kind of does everything from kind of diesel rat rods and everything like that. And he was talking about putting like HD running gear underneath that thing. And really, in the grand scheme of things, relative to the cost of a new Gladiator, I mean, I could do a lot of work to that grandpa's truck. So, I'm thinking, Asus is saying he digs his diesel JLUR. I'm hoping that Josh up at Lolo Overland is going to get a diesel one. But yeah, so that's kind of my thought process. I think the Gladiators are awesome, but for me, I just don't know that it's the right rig. Jason Perry doesn't like the diesel, I'm thinking. All right, guys, let me note here. I think that might be about what I had. So again, the shout outs for the evening. Wanted to give a shout out to JL2 Off-Road. Those guys are on here, but they're some friends I've gotten to kind of know that are doing just kicked off their YouTube channel in New Zealand. I put the link in the description down below this video. So if you guys head over there, check out their channel. I think that's literally their first kind of video that they published or that they put public, but it's actually a really good job on the video. So check that out. And then wanted to give shout outs to Occasional Overland, my buddy Mike, again, down in the description below. CNTRL Oregon ADV, Central Oregon Adventure. That's my buddy John that I met up this weekend. And then newer connection is Tport_110. That's my buddy Tucker that tagged along with us for most of the day this weekend. So if you guys can go check them out, and yeah, let's see what else we have going on here. Better yet than LJ, Cummins in a TJ. That would be pretty bad. I loved my old TJ Jeeps. What I really loved was I loved that Straight 6 motor that came in them. Let's see. Okay, so JL2 Off-Road said they have about 7 videos up as of now. What else, guys? I've got some Got some sausages and some mashed potatoes and some onion gravy waiting for me. I'm going to have some bangers and mash for dinner. Good old school. Oh, there's Tucker's on here, man. Tucker saying that he wants to get a new Ranger, but that truck did awesome, man. We went through some mud, and that truck went through everything all the rest of our rigs went through. Oh, Nate's asked a really question. The best place to get paper maps, man, that has gotten really, really tough these days. So it used to be you could go to the Forest Service or the BLM and get them. Adam Davidson, thank you, my friend. Get risky, go with a worn out XJ, man. No worries, man. No worries, man. Those are good rigs too. I'm browsing at the comments down here. Story time, man. You guys want story time? All right, let me think about this. What's a good story that I can tell you guys? Jail 2 off-road, man. No worries, my friend. No worries. You really did enjoy the little bit of your videos that I've watched so far, man. Really am looking forward to seeing what you guys roll out with there. Oh, Doug Carr saying that I got him hooked on the Breitime, the Druvorsch and Rusk. That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Patty is asking suggestions for a bear protection gun that would be good for home defense too. Yeah, well, so definitely a Mossberg Model 500 shotgun or a Winchester Model 870. If you're thinking about a shotgun, either of those would be good. Another thing to think about that I know some guys have been doing is the Glock 10 millimeters. That would be another crossover. That would do I mean, with the capacity that you have with it, I think you'd have a prayer for scaring off a bear with it, and definitely would be a good. Oh, so Tempest is saying wants me to tell the story about leaving my 1911 in Africa. So I'm curious who Tempest. Who is that? I feel like that must be somebody that I know well. How do you know about that story, Tempest? Chief Cummins is on here, and he's saying that he has that Glock 10 millimeter. Yeah, he's one of the guys that I saw has that. All right, so you guys want to? All right, so Tempest, I feel like that's going to be somebody I know. So Tempest wants to know the story about leaving my 1911 in South Africa. So this was quite a while ago now. So hopefully, any kind of a statute of limitations has is in effect on this has gone past. So years ago, I went on a hunting trip to South Africa. I think maybe this might have been actually my first trip to South Africa. It was my first trip to South Africa. So I went to South Africa, and, well, I'm probably like 14 days, 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks or something like that. It was an awesome trip, really super cool people. Went to this area, South Africa, right on the border of Botswana. I think on that trip, I hunted 14 different species of game, or I took 14 different species of game. I hunted for a couple more species outside of that I didn't get. But what was really cool is, so there were 2 things really memorable that happened on that trip. One is I met a guy that I became lifelong friends with and ultimately traveled back and forth to South Africa and all over South Africa and Namibia and Botswana, and even dipped our toes into Mozambique and everything with. We worked together. We did a variety of different kind of how shall I say, like work there. We did work there. He owned a huge private military company, and so we did a variety of work over there together. It was really, really cool adventure. Awesome guy. But on that trip, what happened was I met him, and there was another guy that I worked with, a really cool dude whose dad owned this big ranch way out in the bush that we hunted at. So to make a long story short, they, at the time in South Africa, it was really difficult for them to get any kind of decent handguns. Like the few handguns that guys had down there were like these crappy old beat to hell. I mean, they're not bad guns like CZs, and a lot of them were CZs. Almost everybody had CZs, but the problem is they hadn't been importing firearms, I think, into South Africa for a long time, at least not handguns. So all the ones that anybody had down there, I mean, these are guns that guys are carrying like fight with and defend themselves with, right? And so they're all these old beat to crap CZs that are just loose, and some of them have, you know, like one that I was looking at, one guy had a CZ that had the side stop pin in it was actually, they had like made it out of a piece of welding rod because the original one had broke. So to make a long story short, you got these really cool dudes that I got to hunt with, spend a lot of time out in the bush with. And then I have this Kimber Custom 1911 with me with meltdown treatment on it, night sights, you know, the whole works. Probably at the time that was a $1,300 1911, right? So I just feel terrible because I'm carrying like the gold standard at the time of 1911s. I mean, that it was out of the Kimber Custom shop, an awesome gun. So I get to the end of the trip, and I decide that we're driving back to the airport, and we get back to the airport, and I decide to give this guy that I'd met down there this 1911. So we're getting out of the car, and I'm going back to kind of get all my luggage sorted and everything. And I go to Carl, his name was Carl. I go to Carl and I'm like, hey man, I want to give you something. And I hand him that 1911, and he's like, he's just overwhelmed, you know, and so gave him a nice Milt Sparks leather inside summer special inside the waistband holster with it, a couple of extra mag pouches. So I hand all this stuff to him. Well, there's a couple of things that I didn't realize that I'll start right here with. And one of them was that I'll get to later, I'll come back around to, but just keep in mind that it wasn't legal for me to give him a firearm. It wasn't legal for him to have that firearm without that firearm being registered through like the Ministry of Defense or the Department of Defense or however that works over there. So I give him this firearm outside the airport. So he takes off, you know, drops me off at the gate there with all my bags and everything, and he takes off back out into the bush, right? So this is, I don't remember what the deal was, why I couldn't get a hold of him by phone. I don't remember if there just wasn't service where he went or what the deal was. But so anyway, to make a long story short, so I go strutting on into the airport. And the way that it worked at the time in South Africa is when you come into the country with firearms, you can bring whatever firearms you want, and you check them in through the police station. So you go to the police station and you work with the actual police station. In this case, it was in Johannesburg. You work with the police station in Johannesburg and you do all the paperwork and everything to have your guns. And you just keep that paperwork with you wherever you are in South Africa with the guns. So when you go out, where you go first is you go to the police station to check all of your guns back out. So and there's kind of a police station in the airport at the time. So I go to this police station in the airport in Johannesburg, and I've got my rifles in my case, and then I give him my paperwork, and the guy like takes my paperwork and he's looking at it, and he's all Mr. Kaiser, I see there's where is this other gun? Where is this other gun? And he's pointing to the paperwork, and he's saying, and he's asking about this pistol, and I said, well, I don't have it. And then I started realizing that maybe it wasn't okay. So I didn't want to get my friend in trouble. So what I said was, oh, I think I left it where I was out in the bush. And he's telling me, oh no, this is very bad. We don't allow the importation of firearms into our country. This is a very serious crime. And so they end up like arresting me and taking me to a legit police station, right? And so all this time, every person I talk to, you know, I'm like, there's got to be something we can do. There's nothing I can do. I mean, I didn't mean to break any laws or anything like that. And so now they take me to the police station. And the way this works at the police station is like when you first get there, like the very youngest like police guy like comes into the interrogation room. And keep in mind, guys, like I'm in a foreign country in a police station, and I'm thinking to myself, like at this point, I have visions of I'm going to get locked up in some prison and no one is ever going to see me again. No one that I know is ever going to see me again. So I'm in the police station, but I'm like I'm in this a dilemma because there's nothing I can do, right? I don't have the gun that they're asking for, and there's no way I can get it. So it's like I'm kind of in equal parts, like sort of like terror and fear, but at the same time, I'm like realizing there's nothing I can do. So I'm just stuck with it, right? Like I just have to ride this out and see where it goes and hope that maybe somebody at the embassy can come unscrew this whole situation, right? So the first guy comes in and he's like a really young guy. And so he sits in there, you know, and he's like giving me the whole thing, asking. So now what they're doing is they're asking me questions about what happened to the gun. And they're basically like insinuating that I've intentionally imported this illegal firearm into South Africa. Like I'm somehow contributing to the demise of the country and the criminal enterprise in that country, right? Like they're basically like treating me at this point like I'm some kind of a major arms dealer, right? Because I don't have a 1911 with me that I checked into the country. So the first guy comes in and he's like the young guy. Let's just say he's like 20 or 25 or something like that. So he works on me for like 30 minutes or whatever. And then finally I'm just telling him like there's got to be something we can do. So he leaves, right? And I sit in this room, metal table, like, whole thing, one-way glass or whatever. I sit in this room. It's hot, no air conditioning on there. And then pretty soon, like this other guy comes in. And now he's like the next level up the chain, right? Like he's the other guy's boss. So now he comes in and now things are like getting really serious. Like, he's like kind of talking like, we're going to have to start doing some paperwork here. You have to, this whole thing going on. So probably another 30 minutes with the second guy. Okay, we don't get anywhere. And so he finally leaves, right? Now, there's another little detail here that I have to tell you guys is like everywhere you look in the police station, there's these huge signs that say like, it is a massive crime to attempt to bribe a public official and all this stuff. Big white signs with red lettering and Afrikaans and English and 3 other languages or whatever. So all of this stuff is going on. I get through the second guy. Now the third people come in. The third people that come in are now 2 people. And I know that this guy is like really super important because up until this point, everyone who's come in has been wearing a blue shirt, right? Well, these last 2 people that come in, now the one guy has a blue shirt, but the other guy has a white shirt on, right? So he is clearly the most important person in this whole hierarchy of stuff. So he comes down, the guy in the blue shirt stands, the guy in the white shirt sits across the table from me. And he looks at me and he says, I'm afraid that there's nothing we can do. You've committed a horrible crime, and at this point, there's we're just gonna have to process this crime. And so he's I don't know why. I think I got to the point where I was like desperate, and at this point, I was convinced that I was going to prison. So I don't even know where this thought came from, but I had cash in my pocket. So I reached into the pocket of my pants and I got a $50 bill. No, I don't even think it was a $50 bill. I think it was a $20 bill out of my pocket, a $20 US bill. And I put my hands like this in front of me on the table and he's across from me. And I say, there's got to be something we can do. And I just see his eyes like look up like this at this camera right there. And for whatever reason, I just knew. So I reached my hands out to him. And he reached his hand out. I put that $20 bill in his hand and I leaned back in my chair. He looked up at the guy with the blue shirt. The guy with the blue shirt handed him the clipboard with the paperwork on it. The guy in the white shirt signs the paperwork and says, rips off the copy, hands me the copy and says, Mr. Kaiser, you are free to go. We hope you've enjoyed your stay in South Africa. And that was it. So I spent probably 4 hours in the police station the majority of it thinking that I was going to spend the rest of my life in a South African prison, probably, all over a problem that ultimately I solved with $20 US. So that's the story of how I left my Kimber 1911 custom carry in South Africa and how I managed to get my way out of the country by that. Here's the thing, though. What that taught me was a very powerful lesson about how to get things done in that country and how a system like that works. And it's really interesting when you deal with a system that has a lot of corruption in it like that, because on one hand, it can be really unnerving. There's not really you don't necessarily know the system of rules to operate in. But the flip side of that is that almost any problem in that system can be solved with a little bit of money. And there's like a certain amount of reassurance that comes with that. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? It sucks that you don't know the rules, that anyone in a position of authority at any time might kind of put you in a position like that. But at the same time, it's reassuring once you figure out that all that it takes is a little bit of money. Couple of on another trip down there with my buddy, we're cruising down this highway, and we have guns in the car and all kinds of stuff, and we're cruising down the highway, and we get pulled over, and we're driving too fast, and the police officer comes up to the car, and he's like, I'm gonna have to write you guys a ticket. And my buddy looks over at him, and he's like, no, I just want to pay my fine now. I don't want to go to the police station. I just want to pay my fine now. And the police officer looks at him and he's like, how much can you pay now? And my buddy's like, I can pay you 20 Rand right now. I want to pay my fine right now. I pay 20 Rand. That's my fine. And I'm good to go. And the police officer says, you pay 25 Rand. You pay 25 Rand now. And my buddy's like, fine. I don't want to go to the police station. I don't want to go to court. I'll just pay my 25 Rand. Pays him 25 Rand cash or whatever the amount was. And we drive off. So anyway, that's my story about learning how the system works down in certain areas in that part of the world. Now, I don't want to give you guys the wrong impression. Awesome people there. I met some of the best people in my life in that country down there, and oh man, the chief's giving me a hard time. He says first thing in the morning he's going to be wearing his white shirt. Man, that's rough. So yeah. So I don't want to give you guys the wrong impression. Great people in South Africa. Obviously, not everyone there is corrupt or anything like that. I think you probably get into more of that stuff when you're out in the rural areas, when you're out kind of on the fringes of the bush and stuff like that. But good stuff, man. Good times. All part of the adventure, right? So I think that's it, guys. I think that's what I got from you. And I got some dinner cooking. So I think that's about it for Camp Talk for this Sunday night. So I just want to say again, thank you guys all for tuning in, man. I really look forward to these Sundays. So I really appreciate hanging out with you guys for the evening. Mark Taniguchi, Banana Law. I like it, man. Asa, JL2 Off-Road, always a pleasure. Brad Collender, sorry, man, I didn't see you on here. Glad you joined us for the night. Enoch, Oregon, WJ Adventures. Thank you, my friend. NC Farmer, Rich Patton, Matt S., Doug Carr, Angie Jensen. Working on some good stuff for next week. Upcoming videos. I told you guys I'll be working on the Legends series of videos. We're going to go find us some gold, I think. We're going to start doing some treasure hunting in earnest. So I hope you guys all have an amazing Sunday evening. Thank you all for spending some time with me, and I'll look forward to seeing you on Camp Talk Live again next week. Until then, Coyote Works out.